Hi, welcome to this session, and as I said, we're moving on into the application space. So we've built up our viewpoint from the technology usage, and we're going to move that up to the application usage. We're building out a word processing service for a team, okay? And then we're going to go to an application service above that, and in this case, what application are we going to use for enterprise architects? We're going to use Archi, so I'm just going to model that. So let's just look through the slides and then we'll go from there. Here we go, application usage viewpoint. Again, these are in the spec, so all you have to do is look at those in the spec, and they're also in the hints to the tool. So we've got our application usage viewpoint in the tool. You'll notice I've put a few in there for you to put your details in. So let's look at the slides. Notice application service serves a process. A role is assigned to a process. Application interface is assigned to an application service. An application component realizes an application service. It accesses a data object. Okay, so you get the point. Again, these are our little snapshots of the meta model, our little viewpoints that we're taking, and we're now connecting up application up the stack to business. So let's do that, and I'll show you what I mean. As you see here, I've built one out. Timesheet service by Alesco. What does it do? Functions, sends out creates, reads, updates timesheets, so like CRUD matrix, and it accesses some sort of data, timesheet data, phone number data, you name it. So we're doing the same sort of thing, but we're doing it from an enterprise architecture perspective. So again, as you get more proficient with this, it'll start to come in and flow a little bit easier. So in this case, application service, again, we're on our right here. We'll go to grab application service. So let's call it architecture modeling. Service. Let's go VICE. There we go. Notice glasses this time. Makes it a little bit easier. What does it do? From an application function perspective, we create models. Right. What application component are we going to put in there? Let's call it Archi, which is the tool we're using right now. Makes sense. What sort of data are we going to put in there? Call it models. Then we could have multiple different types of models underneath. Notice when you drag and drop on top of an object of the same type, it gives you the opportunity to make it a composition and aggregation of. So all I've done is say it's a tech model. Yeah, a valid piece of data, right? Just grab these little bad boys, make them bigger. See what I mean? And the relationship happens underneath the covers. Kind of cool, kind of nifty, very useful. Okay, now maybe we call out it's in a certain location. Where are my location objects? Did it give me a location object? Oh, it didn't give me one. Notice as we're looking at our application node, they're all just sitting there up at the root. Then we have to put them together. Now, locations are underneath other. So you can pick up a location and drop it on there. It's not actually breaking anything. It's just adding more data to the palette. But typically, you stick to the objects you're allowed to use. In this case, location doesn't hurt. It must have been what our stakeholder wanted at the time. In this case, our stakeholder, let's say it's the Albury shop. Bang, I'll put it in there. And all of a sudden you start to see where, different components sit on, kind of cool, huh? All right, so you get the point. We're dragging these and we're using our relationships and we're picking who does what. Now we stick to our template. Stick to our template. Right, data objects, application components, access data objects. Again, application components, access data objects. In this case, accesses. Right. Application component. Realize service. Another funky thing you can do with these little things is you can right click them, say it's the connection router Manhattan, and it'll start to change the types of, that's a fun little thing to play with. Never mind, just schematically. Okay, so again, you get the point. These are our application components. All right, now let's go back to our relationships there. Realizes. So application modeling service, you create models with it. Remember how I was telling you who's doing what to what? So noun, verb, noun. So the functions are verbs. You have to dive a little bit deeper into the spec, but you'll start to see the differences there. What interface? Application interface. So an Archie is using an interface. Say we were using so this one is composed of. So that's how other applications get to Archie. Just say it was some sort of RESTful API. Okay, that's possible. See what I mean? So we're connecting up our model. Now, remember on our technology stack here, I put together, I stopped it there. And if we go back to our example here, I actually added business applications on the right there. Also doable. So why don't we just, on our model, add a business app. So I'll just grab a group here, right, type in, right click it, hit rename, call it business applications. And you'll see, now I can go over here on the left and pick underneath my nodes. And this is the cool part. Boink. Word processing serves Archie. Cross the boundary, serves. Cool, huh? Now, every time I click on Archie, I'm going to get, there's obviously a dependency, a relationship between word processing and Archie. You see how, as you get to this level of discipline, and this is the practical level of discipline, if you're practicing this and you've just got a way to model this visually, you can then run those spreadsheets all day. You can run those queries all day. And this is the juice. As I said, now we've just built it from the technology stack up to the app stack. Now we're going to go above the app stack into the business process. So let's go to the next exercise. So in theory, what application components would you use for an architecture capability? We just did. We added Archie. That simple. So you can see how the power is in multiple of these applications side by side. And as you get more and more in depth into the Acumate modeling languages, you've got collaborations between applications. You've got interactions between applications that happen via collaborations. So you can start to build the whole app stack sideways. And then you've got technology collaborations and you build your whole tech stack below it across platform services that interface with each other, right? So it's actually quite rich modeling language, but simple enough to be usable. Now, I've seen UML, I've seen all these other languages, and yeah, okay, they've got some good stuff in there, but very complicated. Too many options, blows your mind. How about we just stick to the simple modeling language and have a common data model so that we can go across our plan, our build, and our run? Sound good? Let's do that. Okay, so our application components. Now, we're on exercise number 4. Welcome to this session. Now we're going to move up into the business stack, up the chain. Thank you for coming along this far. Sorry, I've just had a minor frog in the throat. Okay, so let's look at exercise number 4. Business process viewpoint. Now you'll notice we've got our application service down the bottom here that talks to different processes and functions, and a business service. Straight up, pretty simple. Okay, and let's have a look at an example. Now there's an example. You'll notice that I've put together, underneath the business IT architecture project plan, we have a thing called the Solution Architecture Review Service. And that realizes, so this process, the Solution Architecture Review process, obviously realizes that service. And then logically, we group it under different steps underneath that whole process, right? And a peer review will trigger a solution architecture review. And remember, and in this case, we're working through a project management methodology. So remember, plan, build, run. In the build space, there's the project management methodology. We've got planning phases, we've got implementation phases. So between those phases of your project management methodology, you might be wanting to do a solution architecture review. Okay, so I'm just showing you this as an example on the types of things that you would see in that viewpoint. And then the key is to drop it and connect it to an application service. So then you get the whole stack: business, application, moves out to some data, and then technology underneath. So in theory, looks something like that. That's our example. So what business process components would we use for the enterprise architecture capability, do you think? Let's do a sample. Okay, so here you go. Hands-on. Business architecture, hands-on. Right, business service, conceptual process, logical process, products, roles, actors. Right, they're just following. I'm just following that viewpoint. You see on the right there, roles, actors, processes. I've just broken it down to conceptual process, logical process, conceptual process, solution architecture review, logical as we come down, and then who's actually accessing it, actors and the like, and deliverables. All right. So we're basically learning the language, and we're learning how to read the language, and we're learning how to speak in sentences. It's pretty straightforward. All right, so what triggers a business architecture model? Say it's a EA project engagement trigger. There you go. All right, what are we calling the business service? Go to our little palette on the right there and pick up business service. call it the architecture review service, which will turn into a bunch of conceptual steps. So we've got our process. Where is it? There it is. Our process. So conceptual, process, architecture, conceptual. So let's just call it architecture, conceptual, process, which will turn into a set of steps. So we've got a process. All right. Notice we can drop them on there and they're compose. So we call it AR steps 1. You see how we're starting that. And then what products will the review service have to look at? Well, here we go. Business objects, representations. Representation. A representation is defined as the perceptible form of information carried by a business object. Call it a architecture model, representation of a project, call it an architecture model, and then that would associate itself to a TechArch model as a data object underneath the covers, which was one of the ones that we created earlier in our application architecture. So you get the idea. What roles? So we talk about EA for Enterprise Technology Architect, right? We talk about an Enterprise Data Architect, all right? We talk about Enterprise Application Architect, see what I mean? And then they could be physical actors or people who are doing, so EA, ETA1, right? So this guy is assigned to that role, right? That role is assigned to that service. See what I mean? So we're starting to build out our business architecture piece by piece. Now, as you fill in all these boxes, you fill in everything, under the covers, you'll start to see the different relationships down here, right? And you'll get full connectivity. Very useful stuff. So I'm hoping the hands-on is showing you, here's the templates, start filling in the boxes, and then underneath the covers, you're sticking to the content meta model, and away you go. So now we have an architecture review service that hits an architecture modeling app called Archi, that Archi can spit out Word documents for you, and it's an infrastructure service called word processing that runs on a desktop. You see what I mean? We have a stack of stuff that's all equals one business service. People, process, information, and tools to get a job done. That's a capability. Now, those capability you can use all over the business. And this, if you're doing your house and you're building it like this, piece by piece, you eventually will get to the place where as soon as you try and run a project over the top, you're going to see all the impacts. Your estimation will get better, your credibility will get better, You'll be proving value. And does a business stakeholder, so remember we were talking about our general manager, and he was talking back to the business. Do they want to know all of this science under the covers? So you've got your architecture, your science book report, aim, method, expected result, actual result, right? All that result stuff is what's happening here on these tools, and all the science is happening in the tools. But outside of that, you just have to give them back the insights on a one pager that says, here's the exec summary, and away you go. This is what we recommend. Okay, so let's keep going. Hi, my name is Carl Stanley, and we're on exercise number 5. So we've just built up technology, application, business. And now we're going to go and look at how do I sandwich stack all those together, just like I showed you on our content meta model. And here's our exercise. So bear with me. Creating a conceptual solution design. So if you know a little bit about TOGAF, and at the top of TOGAF in the vision stage, there's this thing called the conceptual solution design, or the solution context diagram. And then at the lower end, there's a project context diagram. So we use the conceptual solution design, the layered viewpoint, to put all those things together: technology, application, and business. So we're going to use the layered viewpoint for capability. Remember, people, process, information, technology. Let's add all these models together, pulling out the conceptual layer components only. So there you go, right? You'll notice that there's an external role to your company. And in our case, who's our external customer? Well, it's not the whole. We're not the face of the actual business proper. We are the face of our team, which is a business in itself, and we hand out services. So you'll notice I put together another course on that one. It was based around creating an enterprise architecture team with the services defined. And there's a handbook on how to execute with some concepts your team. So look at it from that perspective. So what business services did we just call out? Well, we do an architecture review service, right? Which is that one there. And then we have some sort of process, and that process talks to some sort of modeling service, and then it talks to some sort of app, and then that app talks to some sort of infrastructure service. So that's what we've just done. We've pulled out the conceptual parts and strung them together using a layered viewpoint. Okay, that's our example. So we did this one, that's the top. We showed you that one, we showed you that one, we showed you that one. You see what I mean? So basically, this layered viewpoint only pulls out, you'll notice, the service, and then the service, and then the service, the service, then the service, then the service. Okay? So what components would you use for the enterprise architecture capability? This is basically a capability definition of people, process, information, and tools. So then you could name this capability. So it goes through a process. This could be the architecture capability or enterprise architecture capability. All right. So if you are defining your organization in terms of capabilities, you know what strategic impact is going to, when you change strategy, what is going to be impacted in your business based on certain capabilities. And if you had to think of the term capability, right, it's an ability that we have to do something. So in this case, I'm an enterprise architect trainer, and I have capability for production, so I can produce videos. So I have a production management capability, and that equals people, me, process, me, applications, me, tools, right? I've got all those tools in a bill of material, and so I know when somebody says production management and I need to change something, I need to add some more software, I know what's going to happen to my business. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do, but we're doing it from an enterprise architecture perspective for a team. No different. So how would we do that? Back to our tool, go to the I put one together called Business Application Technology Combined Hands-On View. So what do? we pull out our business service. Right, so remember we've got business up here on the left. I created a bunch of them. What's our business service? Architecture review service. Drop. Sorry, that's the actor. There's the service. Drop. What's the process called? We have the architecture conceptual process. Drop. Right. And what's the application service that we used? Architecture modeling service. What component do we use? We used Archi. See how it just dragged the relationships that we created onto the model? And then what infrastructure services do we use? We used a word processing service. And see how it just dropped them onto the model? And it went down to a piece of infrastructure like I call it a desktop laptop. Desktop. Right? So if we keep to that level of discipline, so who could be out here? Well, in theory, external role or actor could be a PM. Right, the PM. This business process serves the PM role. This business process realizes that service. This architecture modeling service serves the architecture process. Archi realizes that service. Word processing serves Archi, etc., etc., etc. So now I have a capability definition. There's your hands-on. So I'm hoping you're enjoying this, because if we get to this level of discipline, one, I've delivered on what my course intent was. Okay, I've taken you from a conceptual high level to logical demonstration to physical hands-on procedures to do architecture modeling.